And we are live. Hey, everybody. Thanks for showing up. With me tonight, I got Ben from Ben's Brick Designs, and we're going to shoot the shoot and build. And I'm going to ask Ben a million questions because that's what I do.
And I'm going to have 900,000 answers.
Fantastic. All right. So I got to know almost every day you've got a drawing up, and it looks like a whiteboard drawing. I think it's a whiteboard drawing. You've labeled it as whiteboard drawings before, so I got to know how'd that start.
It is a whiteboard drawing.
Yeah.
So I had a whiteboard at my office, and I would use it to, like most people who work in IT, you'd have your, like, not a vision board, but you'd have like your projects and your near term, your far term, whatever. But it was this giant whiteboard. And I couldn't fill it up with everything that I was working on. There was just no way. So I would use like a quarter of it to like write down my 5 projects. And the rest of the board was just like wide open. So I was like, well, I'm just going to start writing down, you know, hey, today is National Nacho Day, or today is National Take Your Whatever to Work Day. And it's like kind of a lark. But the way my office was situated is if people were walking down the hall, they would walk right towards it so they'd see it every day. So that progressed into other things like so-and-so's birthdays today, or I would have people vote. I'd leave markers out and they could vote like, okay, this coming Friday, it's one of 5 things. You get to vote for what kind of drawing you want to see. So I would draw whatever got the most votes. So when we started working from home, I had a whiteboard here that I'd never used. That was one of those, well, we'll just stick it up on the pantry and, you know, write groceries and whatnot. And I was like, well, now that I'm at home, I can start drawing things at home. So that's what I started doing.
Well, that's awesome. It's really nice to see, like, I learn something every time I look at it. So I'm very happy.
Well, that's the idea too. And there's a couple of people who've said that, and I feel bad because I'm like, I'm just cribbing these from a site where it's like on this day, and I'm like, everybody could go to it if they wanted to, but it's fun that people say, yeah, I learned so much from just reading these things. I'm like, that's cool, you know?
Absolutely. And it's neat that you're showing, I don't want to sound like old white guy, but the diversity of people and all their accomplishments and stuff like that too. Does that sound like old white guy? That sounds like old white guy.
It does sound like something my dad would say.
Okay, cool, great. So old white guy, trying not to offend, but accidentally does in fact. Good. Track record's going great.
Yeah. I say that sounds like something my dad would say, but I'm almost 50. I'm an old white guy, you know.
Ooh, yeah, that's fair. Alrighty, I'm going to greet some folks we got in the chat. We got Deanna here. We got Alyssa. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Alyssa.
Spot the Magic Ninja. He's here. Brickham's here. Luggage the Legend is here. Hi, everybody. Thanks for showing up and hanging out with me and Ben while I build and Ben talks about stuff, or I ask him questions about stuff. So when you were on Boone's big show and everything else and all that fun stuff, I found out that you are a fan of ska.
Yes.
And we need to have this discussion.
Okay. We
need to have it now.
I'm going to say that before this gets really into the weeds, I am a surface level fan of ska.
Nope, same. We're going to be hitting the same page. We're not going deep dives into like the specials or anything like that. So no worries.
No, yeah.
All right. So how did you get exposed to the wonderful sounds of punk rock with horns?
So my life in high school was pretty white bread, vanilla, boring. The most edgy music that I was listening to at the time was like Information Society. So when I got into college, I started hanging out with people who had, wildly different tastes, and was turned on to like Nine Inch Nails, which led me down the hole of all kinds of industrial music. And then this one guy, a friend of mine, he was always two-tone, man. He was always his rude boy outfit with his black and white suit and his hat. And I was like, I got to know what this guy's program is. He was weird and funny, and I was like, what are you listening to? What is this music? And so he was listening to, I think, Aquabats at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is amazing music. So ever since then, I'm like, again, it's like radio edits of Rancid, Real Big Fish.
Yeah.
And then at the time he was like, here, you need to listen to this band called Dance Hall Crashers. That's the one that got me into it. And so listening to Dance Hall Crashers backed me into some specials, backed me into like a little bit of Mustard Plug, a little bit of Let's Go Bowling, some of that kind of stuff. And then I just kind of kept with it. So now that's some of my favorite music that I don't know anything about. Like my biggest band discovery of like 2020 was the Interrupters.
Yeah.
Or 2019. And I just could not stop listening to that album. So I saw them in concert here in Austin, and a couple times actually. And I was amazed how much I liked the lifestyle and the music and the crowds, but then realized that I almost know nothing about the bands and their history. And like, I didn't realize that Hellcat Records was founded by old members of, Rancid and some other people. And I'm just like, I don't know any of this stuff. I just like the music.
Yeah. I didn't hear you mention him, but I'm going to ask you, what about Buck-09?
I've heard of Buck-09. I haven't listened to them at all ever. I have a list of, there's a Facebook group that I'm on now called Amazing Music and Artists and stuff. And we do drafts, desert island drafts, where if you could have one album on a desert island, which would it be? And you go through 10 rounds and you can pick your favorite band and album. But then once it's picked, later people can't pick that artist anymore. So you've got to kind of dig deep. And then when it's kind of all done, everybody's then offered to go and review all the albums that are there. So you pick something that you haven't heard. So Buck-09's on my list. Specials was on my list. Like I hadn't heard even, this isn't ska, but I hadn't heard like a complete Pixies album ever. Like I'd heard 2 or 3 songs by them in my whole life. But I was very, so there's times when you go back and listen to the album and go, oh, that's very surprising. I didn't realize how much I enjoyed that. That's fair and far between, but most of the time I'm like, oh, this is another jam band, prog rock. One song is 27 minutes, garbage. So I'm glad I didn't listen to that. But sometimes you run into something that's very cool. And Buck-09's one that it's on my list to listen to. So I'll have to go check it out.
They are a super great band. I promise if you like, oh my God, I can't think of the name, but they do Time Bomb and they do Black Suit, Black Hat,
Rancid.
Not Rancid.
No, that's Rancid.
Oh no, well yeah, it's Rancid, but the band that Tim was in before Rancid.
Oh yeah.
Operation Ivy.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Oh boy, that was a brain fart. But they're, in my opinion, and I said this once at a concert, and I almost got my butt kicked. They're the better version of Operation Ivy.
Oh, really?
It doesn't sound bad. It sounds like, oh, these guys are actually professionals and know how to make music, as opposed to, I hope this works.
Yeah. Well, that's what, when I started listening to a friend of mine posted, he texted me or posted on Facebook or somewhere, called me, I don't know. And it was like, dude, you need to listen to this band. I'm like, what is it? He's like, this is the Interrupters. And I was like, really? And he was the one who went with me to see Real Big Fish in Austin like 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so he knows we're both kind of into rockabilly and ska and that kind of stuff. Some, pop level punk. Yeah. And so he's like, you will absolutely love this. And I did. I listened to nothing but that album for like months.
Wow.
And I think the reason I liked it so much is it was very much Rancid, Operation Ivy, but like really well produced and really tight. And it was like that tight level ska music, but with that punk kind of, social commentary and sensibility of like, we're going to fight the government. We don't like what's going on here. We've got a voice that needs to be heard, but also listen to how tight our horn section is.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to dance to, and it's so fun to sing along with. And it's energetic and it's heartfelt and it's, you know, they're swearing, but it feels wholesome. You know, you're just like, this is just fun, good music. And I'm just shocked that not everybody in the world loves this.
It's really strange when I come across somebody that goes, "What's ska?" And it's like, well, it's 2021 and you don't know. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Especially if you're older than like 25 years old.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it had its resurgence in the late 90s, early 2000s, to where if you were listening to any music, you would have, like, there was the swing revival and then that like third wave ska revival, and then it kind of trailed off a little bit. But yeah, if you hadn't even heard of Real Big Fish, or you haven't heard of any, you know, I guess Rancid or Dancehall Crashers by then, I mean, No Doubt, even early No Doubt.
Early No Doubt was like this the whole time. I loved the crap out of Early No Doubt.
Yeah, Magic Kingdom was legit. It was so good.
They really were. I saw them open up for the Vandals like a long time ago.
That would have been a badass concert.
It was. It definitely was. It was me and my buddy Fat Joe drove to Anaheim, and we were in Arizona at the time, so it was like an 8-hour trip. And then we sat back and we saw one of the greatest shows of our life. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
We didn't see No Doubt, but we saw, because Gavin, what's his name, the lead singer of Bush, was dating
Rosdale.
Yeah. So we went and saw, we thought they would be there. We went to this concert, this day festival concert called Rockfest in Dallas. And it was an all-day thing, and we had stayed up all night. We'd driven from Denver to Dallas. That took like 12 hours. And then we stayed up all night with the people we met. Then we stayed up all day at the concert. And then we drove back to Houston where they lived and stayed up all night. So we were like on 48 hours, no sleep. But we saw Bush and Collective Soul and Counting Crows and, oh God, who else? I want to say like Silverchair, but I mean, like, we saw the 90s basically in a bottle.
That's what I was just about to say. That sounds like a 90s hit list. Like,
it was amazing. I mean, this was 96, 97 when we went.
Yeah.
So this was just the height. And I was kind of hoping No Doubt would be there, because I think that they were billed as being there, but they ended up not showing up. So, but it was super cool.
It was before they got all weird.
Right, before it became just Gwen.
Yeah. I have thoughts about that, and clearly you do too. So.
Oh yeah.
So I think, all right, best concert that you've ever been to. Go.
I haven't been to a whole lot of concerts. I want to say the best one I ever went to was probably when we went to see OK Go in Austin, and it was this little venue called the Church, and they did I can't remember the name of the song, but they did it with handbells. They got the white gloves on, and they came out and they did the whole song with handbells.
That's awesome.
And it was like, I recorded it and put it up on YouTube, and it was like one of my biggest YouTube at the time videos ever.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't done it in very many places, but they just were so tight and so in love with the music that they were doing. And it was just such a revelation to see people be that good with their musicality. I was just completely blown away. I mean, it was better than any like giant stadium show where everything's timed down to the last second with pyrotechnics and video and stuff like that. That said, Nine Inch Nails Downward Spiral tour with like Marilyn Manson and Jim Rose Circus and all that weird stuff, that was also very good.
Well, yeah, that's Nine Inch Nails.
But that was kind of like, yeah, it was Nine Inch Nails. How do you go wrong with that?
I mean, you can't go wrong with Nine Inch Nails. You really can't.
Mm-mm.
That was my first introduction into scary music. That's what my mom called it. She called it scary music. And
yeah,
I guess.
Well, and I'd always been a fan of Head Like a Hole. Was always just because they had like 4 or 5 radio hits off of that, so you knew about it. But I really didn't get into the weeds of it. There was a girl that I was fancying in college that was listening to all that kind of stuff from the time she was a kid. and I knew nothing about it. So kind of not really dating her, but like infatuated with her and hanging out with her and stuff.
Yeah.
Opened up my eyes to a whole range of music, and a lot of that was like early Nine Inch Nails and stuff. So, which led to like KMFDM and Skinny Puppy and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think mine was, and this will just go always be like, this is the concert that came to mind when I was like, I wonder what mine was. It was H2O, Less Than Jake, and Bad Religion.
Oh, Less Than Jake.
And it was right when it wasn't Hello Rockview that came out. It was the one after. It was the album after that, the Road one, and it wasn't really that great, but it was still a good album. It's just not what I was expecting or hoping for.
Right.
So that came out, and H2O did their thing, and they're a pop punk band, and they're awesome, and just I love them to death.
Yeah.
And, then Less Than Jake came out. They played for like an hour and a half, and like members of Bad Religion started just walking onto the stage and playing along with them, and I was like,
oh, nice.
Oh my god, what's happened? Later, luggage. Take it easy, man. Thanks for stopping by. But I was so blown away, and just song ended, and then they all came out, and my buddy Fat Joe and I were backstage because we had passes and we were those guys, and we saw the lead singer of Bad Religion. His hands started to shake like really bad, and we were like, "Oh shit, is he all right?" He downs 2 Diet Cokes, pops 3 Tylenol, and was like, "Let's do this." So, yep. And then he went out and played, and it was great.
Oh my god, that's awesome. I want to change my answer a little bit because my all-time favorite band at this moment right now is Flogging Molly, and I saw them a couple times here in Austin at Stubbs. And the first time I saw them, I went with my ex-wife, kids' mom, and we went, and she kind of disappeared and came back and said that she'd bought me a sweatshirt. I'm like, awesome. And so, but she didn't really know what she was in for. So the opening band played. It was some weird like super hardcore dark wave band or something. It was amazing, but it was like, I have no idea how to take this.
Yeah.
And then like the opening band was just like a guy and his guitar. It was no big deal. But then Flogging Molly came on, and the crush of the crowd to get up to the front of the stage, and she's like 5-0, 100-0, soaking wet. Like the crush of the crowd basically picked her off her feet, and she was just carried with everybody to the front. And I wasn't like there to like start moshing or anything, but everybody just kind of got really pushed and close and everything.
Yeah.
So by the end of that, we had backed off a little bit. By the end of the night, we were kind of just in the back listening to music. And the concert's over, we're leaving. She's like, "Oh no, I think I dropped your sweatshirt." I'm like, "Oh man." I was like, "All right, well," and she's like, No, I'll go back in and see if I can find it. So Stubbs is like this outdoor venue where it's all muddy and hilly and grassy and everything. And she goes back in and she comes back out and she doesn't have the sweatshirt. She's like, "I found it, but it was destroyed." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I dropped it. It must have just got stepped on and muddy and everything." I'm like, that would have been the greatest concert sweatshirt ever. You should have still kept it, you know. Just this absolutely mangled Flogging Molly sweatshirt.
Oh, yeah. That would have been some cred right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wore this on the Salty Dog Cruise of 2002 or something.
That's awesome.
That was a lot of fun. They put on a hell of a show, though. I've seen them several times, and they're always really good.
Man, I've never seen Flogging Molly. They're on the bucket list of bands I want to see. I've seen Dropkick more times than I'd like to count because they always played Vegas, and they always played like a dive bar, and then every once in a while they would play House of Blues. So that's where I was going.
Right, yeah.
And then but I haven't seen Flogging Molly yet, but I listen to their, when I'm doing like building and I'm not, doing the show and everything and camera and all that, I'm usually listening to like anything from like Flogging Molly all the way to Manson to the South. There's a Southern band. I can't remember what the hell they're called. But and then I usually end it with Cash because I respect for Johnny Cash,
Right. Yeah.
And that's just, music is so awesome. Like all the time. Like,
so I started listening to, I realized that because I'm an older gentleman, who does not have his finger on the pulse of stuff anymore, is just kind of listening to the stuff he loves, and I've just finished watching Letterkenny, like all 9 seasons of Letterkenny.
mm-hmm.
And I found the playlist, and I really like the music that's in all the episodes. So I went and found the playlist for it on Spotify. And there's not a lot that I really like on there, but there is a lot that I do. So it's nice to like hear some new stuff where you're like, I have no idea what this is, but I'm here for it. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from any sort of like trip hop house stuff to just some acoustic sounding dude, sounds like Ben Folds. It's kind of a nice to listen to music while you sort or while you build, and it's not something that you want to sing along to or dance to or something. You're just kind of background music.
Yeah.
And that's always good.
My go-to is synthwave. It's like lo-fi, like just like relaxed music, and like that's what I'll listen to when I'm sorting or anything like that. But when I'm building, I need to have a conversation with somebody, and I need to have like music going somewhere if I don't have the conversation going. So that's why I'm like, my majority of the stuff that I do, I invite people on to join me, and that way I've got things going on. Otherwise, it's just me sitting here doing nothing, and I'm building, and questions are being asked, and I'm like, yeah, I guess it's that. But so for the folks that are in the chat, so Ben, you do things that not a lot of people do. So like, for instance, your microfighters are awesome. How'd you get into that exactly?
This is the newest one.
Yeah.
The ITS transport.
I saw you build that the other night, I think, on your live stream bag. I watched after it. The grab bag, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, grab bag, because I didn't know if I was going to get through this or not. Yeah. So this is the ITS transport, and the camera's not focusing well, but it's at Black Spire. So there's the Black Spire, and there's the Millennium Falcon, and Galaxy's Edge. This is the ship from Galaxy's Edge. I got into it because somebody got me a set, I don't know, for a birthday or something like that. My kids may have got me one. And this was about 3 years or so after they started coming out originally. And I really liked it. Like, it was a, it kind of reminded me of like what I started getting Lego for. I was buying a lot of Futuron sets, and they were these little bitty 50 to 100 piece space sets, They weren't super complicated, but they, fired the imagination and were very cool looking and whatnot. And so I really glommed onto these microfighters because it made me feel like that again. And I realized too that I had missed out on a bunch of sets because it's been a year since they came out originally. So I went back to, this is kind of also how I discovered Bricklink, because I was like, I just need to be able to buy these pieces for the Slave 1 that was the San Diego exclusive, or the Turbo Tank, which was like Series 1 microfighter. It's like, I've got most of the pieces now, but I'm missing a handful of them. If I could just have those 7 pieces, I'd have the set. So I started doing that, and then I realized that I could make my own off of the ships that Lego hasn't done, like the Republic Y-Wing or a TIE bomber. They hadn't ever done a TIE bomber. So I was like, well, I'll start doing that. And now I was like, Star Wars has so many ships and science fiction has so many ships that it's like, I'm just going to start designing them on my own.
Yeah.
And that will, every one of those could be a stream. And if I've got 300 to design, that's a year's worth of streams if I just do one stream a week, So that's why I'm doing this now.
Your I can never remember the name, but it's one of my favorite animes because I don't really like anime that much. But your Cowboy Bebop fighter for Spike's ship.
Oh yeah,
that was top notch. Like, I kind of wanted to. I kind of want to take it and blow it up a little and just make it into an actual thing, to tell you the truth, because it's
so that's the problem is I would run into is like when I was looking at pictures of it to design it in microfighter scale, is not to look at other Lego versions of it, because you don't want to get that, I don't want to be too influenced by something somebody's already done.
right.
Otherwise, I would just like, hey, you did a fantastic job of this. I'm just going to buy the parts from you and build yours, because it was great. And there's been some microfighters that I've seen originally in doing research that I'm like, there's no way I could do better than that. I'm just going to get the instructions for yours and build it because it's great.
Yeah.
There's 2 or 3 guys that are still doing it along with me right now. And we barely know each other, but we see each other's stuff all the time, and they do such good work. It's just ridiculous. But they are also like tweaking, and like they will revisit stuff and be like, how can I make this TIE fighter better? How can I make the X-Wing better? How can I make this Y-Wing better? So one of them is the trending brick, and I think he's like featured on Brick Vault or something. He's got a huge following, and the other guy is McQuarrie Designs, playoff Ralph McQuarrie. And his stuff is
sound familiar. Oh, right.
yeah, exactly. First time I saw it, I'm like, why does that? Oh, I got it. Yeah. But his stuff is really good, and he's basically like, true to Microfighter. They're very small, they're very quick. He puts the instructions on Instagram. He's like, take it, do whatever you want. They're fun, just do it. So those 2 guys are doing really good stuff.
That's awesome. And did you know that they were doing it at the time that you were, or did you just start doing it and then discover that, hey, there's other people that do this stuff too?
Yeah, there was, when I started doing this, there was, like I said, there was a big push back in 2014, something like that, when these first started coming out. And a lot of people went through and did basically what I'm doing. And it's like, I think it was Eurobricks or Brick Brothers did a contest on their message board. It's like, hey, everybody, these new microfighters are great. Everybody come up with your own version of a ship that hasn't been done by Lego. Mm-hmm. And so they did. And so when I came back into it like years later, and I was looking for inspiration or other designs, those were all the ones I found. Were all these old ones that on Flickr and stuff. And I would ask them if they had the directions or if they had any blow ups of how they built it. And they're like, dude, I took that thing apart like the day I built it. I don't have any of that.
Yeah.
So it was really quick, but that meant that online there was a lot of it already out there. But these other 2 guys didn't really show up until like right about when I started doing stuff. So we sort of came onto the scene together. But there's a couple people who also did a lot right off the bat who posted everything on Bricklink's gallery. And I was kind of like, the Bricklink gallery I really didn't like, because it was, if you posted anything there, it became property of Bricklink. And I'm like, I don't like that. So I started doing that initially, and then I yanked everything down once I read the terms of service. I was like, I don't want anybody to have, because at the time I was thinking I was going to try to sell these, like at least the instructions, the models, if I could part them all out. And I knew Ideas wasn't going to do any IPs, but I thought maybe I could, if Lego saw them or something like that, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's a good design.
Well, I mean, but hey,
it worked for who?
Chris McVeigh, the guy that does the sketches, the brick
yeah.
sketch. They saw his. Hey, welcome aboard. So I mean, I don't blame you there. Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing is, I've used a couple of totally just lost my voice. I've used a couple of his really super old builds. Like he was doing like MIDI scale ships, but they were like pilotless microfighter size, right? But he was calling them like mini scale. And these were hosted back on like, oh man, like mock pages kind of thing.
Oh,
or even before that, whatever it was, Lugnet, they were on like a Lugnet page. And I found them and I'm like, these are great. But yeah, I mean, it's that same thing where it's just like, you just keep doing it and just push it everywhere you can. And eventually somebody will be like, hey, this is cool. We should be doing this. I don't know how many hundreds of Star Wars ships I have to go through for that to happen, but I'm gonna keep doing it.
Well, I enjoy it. That's for sure. Whenever I try to catch your streams, I try to hang out as long as I can, and I enjoy seeing your process of doing it all because just because that's how I am. I like to know how things work, yada shmata, whatever. But what gets me is that like you moved away from Star Wars, and I have no idea if that was a thing you were doing before or whenever you started that. And like you come up with some of the greatest like pieces and like ways to do it, and it just blows my mind.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Scott D. Bricks, what's going on? How you doing?
What's up, Scott?
Alrighty. So
yeah, that's just come from like constantly looking at new elementary and knowing what new bricks are out there, waiting for them to show up in studio, using them over and over again, finding other people's instructions and seeing what they're doing. That's, you know, cool new build techniques. It's, you know, it's just a matter of how, like, there's another guy that I watch, Darth Designer. I'm sure everybody's seen his stuff, but watching his streams, and he and I do basically the same thing, but he's been doing it a little longer, and he's got a lot of following for his jet fighters and his battleships, and his, you know, he's done some Star Wars stuff too. Mm-hmm. But we basically do the same thing. We just sit there and talk to ourselves and see what parts work for the shape we need it to be in. Yeah. And it's just, it's very satisfying and Studio is a great tool, and I pimp it as much as I can to people who are into this. It's a great way to really visualize something, but it does take a little time to figure out, you know, the part names and what pieces go where and what can be done. And, you know, yeah, it's just like any art program.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And even then it's, why is the program freezing?
Yeah. You know? Yeah.
Like, why is this? Why? You know, and
that's the problem I have running on my ad hoc. I'm using my, you know, Beth's MacBook Air, and I'm trying to run Studio and stream from OBS on it at the same time, and the poor machine's going, I can't handle more than one thing at a time, you know, and you're just like, ugh. So my stream looks like a pantomime done in slideshows because it's all jerk, jerk, jerk.
No, it doesn't. It's a smooth running stream when you got it going. I can rest assured that is definitely it. It's not that bad. So
outstanding.
Yeah. So when are you going to build Serenity?
It's actually on my list. The other day when I started doing the Batmobiles, the original thing was to do Serenity, honestly. Mm-hmm. I've got a list of, the reason I did Batmobiles is somebody said, there's a guy who's in Texas named Travis. He goes by Synthetic Mason. He's going to pimp his site. It's Brick It Up. He does a lot of small transformers, like very small, like 17-piece transformers, but it's all like Gen 1 stuff. And it's really cool. Like they're fully transformable. A lot of the transformations are like you take it apart and put it back together, but there's enough twisting and clips and turning that they're great. And he was like, hey man, don't forget about land vehicles in your quest to like do everything in Microfighter. Don't forget about like the APC aliens personal carrier car thing, or this tank from this show, or this treaded vehicle from this show. He's like, or a Batmobile, for heaven's sake. And I was just like, Batmobile, that'd be great. And like, because my artistic person brain was just like, new idea, glom onto that, worry that until you're burned out of it, and then just give up. So that's why I did two really quick, and now I'm like, now I'm back to spaceships, you know. But Serenity was the one that I was like, that's the next one I'm going to do. I was trying to get away from Star Wars and do some sci-fi, but not Star Wars ships. So like the Swordfish from Cowboy Bebop. I did the SDF one from Robotech.
And that's a deep dive on itself. Like kids these days don't know what Robotech is. And when I saw that, I went, yeah, because I liked Robotech when I was growing up.
Right. The problem that I have with it is it's more of like a MIDI scale build. It's really big. It's not. I mean, I wanted it to be fully transformable, And I was like, yeah, but that would require a lot of different moving bits. And I get so carried away with this sometimes that I have to keep an eye on the part count. And if I break 100, I'm like, well, this isn't really officially a microfighter anymore, but it's whatever. But yeah, it still looks effing bad. I love it. I can't wait to build it.
Yes.
So yeah, Serenity. I could do that one next. I've got a couple in the hopper to build, an actual build, but the next design I'll do that.
Good. I will be definitely tuning in for that.
Plus, I think Mal would be a good minifigure to make. I think he'd be pretty easy.
Yeah. Throw some stickers on them, and you're good to go.
Yep. Get a red shirt, get a trench coat. You've got like the Han Solo brown pants with the holster on it.
All set.
Yep. Yeah, Scott, the Buck Roger was a lot of fun. I actually trimmed it up a little bit because the one that I did on the stream was a little fat. And then I went back and it reminded me so much of the show. Like the theme song was just going through my head the whole time I was doing it.
Oh, no.
I went back and watched like 2 or 3 episodes of the show. And I'm like, I love this show as a kid, man. This is so great.
That was Star Wars for television.
It was, yeah.
Like that and Battlestar Galactica.
I watched a thing today because, yeah, it was Battlestar Galactica. It came out in 77, 78, like the exact same time Star Wars came out. And everyone's like, oh, this is Star Wars for TV, and they rushed it. And so I was watching a thing today, and it turns out Glenn A. Larson, the guy who created it, Battlestar, and I didn't know this, was like a big like Mormons in space kind of thing because he was Church of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
So he was basically telling a Mormons in space story, science fiction based. But he had been writing that for like 3 or 4 years before Star Wars even came out. So this wasn't really aping Star Wars. This was just coincidentally came out like at the same time. It was meant to be a theatrical movie. They did like a couple-hour TV pilot, and then it was supposed to be followed. So it got chopped up into what we know now is like just a 2-season show kind of thing. So
yeah. Well, don't forget about Battlestar Galactica in 1980.
We've all forgotten about that because it was terrible.
Yeah, it's real bad. Yeah,
it was god awful.
Yeah.
Yes, puppy, I know.
I really enjoyed the reboot that Sci-Fi did.
I did too.
Yeah. Like
I watched it a couple times, and I know the end of it got a little flack, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah. It was fun. It was exciting. Some of it was a little wonky, yeah, but it was good. Like,
it was a victim of the writer's strike, so it couldn't really tell its own story towards the end because they had to kind of piece a lot of it together.
I did like the spoilers, everybody. I did like the fake out of, hey, we made it to Earth, and like their conceptual idea of Earth was like, oh no.
Yeah. Oh, it's a charred radioactive rock. Look at that.
Sweet.
We're rewatching it. We were rewatching it in the before times because Beth hadn't seen it. Mm-hmm. For your viewers, Beth is my new bride.
That's right. You got married, what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks?
3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So she hadn't seen it, and before we moved, we were living next door to a couple that was basically exactly like us. Like they came over and said, hey, we're your new neighbors. And they're like, hey, we like your nerdy tattoos on your arm and your stickers on your car. And I was like, do you guys play Pokemon Go? And they're like, yes. And ever since then, we're just like the best of friends. But they're into nerdy crap and science fiction movies and board games and whatever. So best friends. And we were trying to rewatch with them. So they'd come over to our house. We'd have dinner. We'd go over to their house, have dinner, watch 2 or 3 episodes of Battlestar Galactica. And we got to about season 3 when we couldn't really go over to their house anymore.
Yeah.
So we tried watching it on they had the DVDs, but only one of us could watch it at one time. So we tried watching it on NBC's site, but the commercial breaks were different. So it's not like we could go, okay, 3, 2, 1, play, because in the commercial breaks were always different times. So it was frustrating. But now we've got a projector and a screen as a wedding gift. So we're thinking of doing backyard viewing so we can get back into Battlestar Galactica.
Absolutely.
Because I want them to be able to finish watching it. One of them hasn't seen it, and Beth hasn't seen it all the way through.
Yeah, so that sounds like a good goal for this year.
Yeah.
Projector up, start throwing movies on it or TV shows or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So when my wife and I, well, girlfriend might as well be the wife. You know how that goes.
I do.
Yeah, when we switched to fiber optic cable internet, and
Ooh,
hey, here's HBO Max for free with your package.
nice.
And I was like, okay, whatever. And there's a couple good movies on there. And then 2 days ago, I'm scrolling through, and Babylon 5 is on there, like HD remastered. And I was like, this is a thing that's going to happen now. So
this is a sign.
5.
I watched that. I think it was on Prime. I watched it on Prime, and that was another show where I'm doing like a studio build over here, and I'm just floored at myself for using 5 pieces when I could have used 1. Just stupid. I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, so I remember thinking, oh, I'll do a rewatch of Babylon 5 because it's available on Prime now. And I started watching it, and I was like, I don't have any idea what's going on. I don't think I've ever seen this show. But I had memories of like, no, I remember there was like, this thing happened. I remember all the characters. You know, I was like, I'm waiting for the Shadow War to start. I remember that they went to this planet, and there was this keeper inside the planet, and he was like this powerful. I'm like, I remember all this, but like the specifics, the minutia, I was like, I don't remember any of this stuff. So it's kind of a pleasant surprise to like rewatch it. It's a very good story.
Oh,
the effects and the sets don't hold up, but you know, whatever.
You know, the special effects are garbage, but
yeah,
it's one of the best written science fiction shows of our lifetime. Like hands down. I thought, I'm a big Star Trek nerd, and I thought it was better than Star Trek Deep Space Nine because there was never an episode that I wanted to
watch your mouth. No, I'm just kidding.
Look, man, the Frankie episodes, I can't stand them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But with Babylon 5, I was just so enthralled with it. And the first season, there was it's a religious gathering, and everybody from all the planets are gathering up, the religious leaders and things like that. And like, you know, this is the representation of our planet for our religion. This is the dominant religion. And I was studying a lot of theology at the time when it came out. And I think the best move that Sinclair did in that was he had a representative of Earth from every religion that he could get there, you know? And that was pretty amazing.
That was pretty cool.
I just thought it was like, well done.
It's that ideal that like Star Trek kind of initially tried to be, still tried to be, I think later on a little bit, but it's that idea of, yeah, we're all one people, and this is like the kind of the distilled, encapsulated good out of everything. It's the Carl Sagan gold disc on Voyager kind of science fiction, where you're like, yeah, it's hopeful and it works together, and it's just, I don't know. I agree, it's good stuff.
Yeah, that's so. It's funny because I think you and I are like-minded in a lot of how we view things and a lot of how we view people when it comes to rights and all that fun stuff, and you know, borderline on, you know, communities and such like that. I'm trying to be as not hard sent as I am, but like I think Star Trek taught me a lot about acceptance and a lot about just like whatever, you know, and like I know that like my sister is transitioning, or my sister from another mother, I call her, because we're like best friends, but she's my sister. And that was not a thing I was whatever, and like her going through this was like I got more acceptance and more understanding. And I think that's one of the cool things about us that are kind of old dudes, is that we've seen so much hatred in the world and so much anger and everything else, is that like we just put on some ska and skank and have a good time, man.
Everybody just dance and be happy.
You know, so that's where I was going. It was a long trip, but we got there.
Yeah.
You know. So what are you working on right now?
Well, at the moment I've got a new NU class shuttle microfighter that I'm trying to pare down on parts, because it's 121 parts, which is about 20 to 30 more than I want, and it's actually pretty big. So I'm trying to like reduce part size by, you've got certain number of plates right here together. Why not one plate to take its place? Make everything smaller, instead of a 3x3, use a 2x3, that kind of stuff. And then I'm also cataloging, see if I can pick this up without completely losing it all. So part of the process of going through microfighters is finding figures for them. So I've been going through all my Star Wars figures that I don't have as a microfighter yet. These are just from the sets.
Holy crap.
And these are just the ones that are together. Like I have a whole drawer of them that are in pieces.
Yeah.
That are handfuls of, because my son got a hold of them. He would come over and I'd be like, go play with my Lego. I don't care. I'm not one of these guys who's like, don't touch it. It's just like, it's meant to be played with. Go play with it. So now I've got a bunch of like random, I've got like 15 Obi-Wan Kenobis, but they all have different hairstyles. So now I'm like, does this one have a headset? Does he have the right hair? Does he have the right robes? So I'm going through all my Star Wars figures, trying to rebuild the correct figures, and then comparing them to the list of 150, 170 microfighters and saying, okay, which Imperial officer do I need? Which TIE fighter pilot do I need? Which Rebel pilot do I need? And seeing if I already have it, so I don't have to order it again if I've already got it.
More power to you, sir.
Yeah. I just ordered the solo Star Wars movie version of Lando with the yellow shirt. Because that was what?
That was some bucks.
Yeah, it was like $25,
yeah.
Which is mid-range for a good minifigure. It's not super expensive, but it's not like a $2 minifigure. So I'm kind of like, crap.
Yeah.
But he only came in one set. So it's like, well, of course he's going to be pricey.
Yeah.
But it'll be that anymore because all the big ships have been done. Now we're going to get into like the obscure ships, the New Republic, the Old Republic, the Fell Empire, all these non-canon stories now from comics and stuff. I'm going to have to start buying custom minifigures. It's like, somebody make me a Cade Skywalker. I could kit bash it. That's the thing. Like I could probably kit bash a bunch of them. Just put, Luke's shirt, different color arms, some kind of hood, a cape.
Yeah.
Done. Throw a lightsaber on them, done. But there's some that are very specific. So I'm going to go to Big Kid Bricks and a couple other custom people and just see if they've got them in catalog. And if not, just ask them if they could do it. But
not a bad plan. So I'm done with my build. I'm going to talk about that just for a little bit before we all sign off and everything.
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. I'm going to switch our screens around. So everybody, so this is parts that are falling off my table and really annoying noises as I move all of this rather than just put it somewhere nice and tidy. So this is the build that I've done tonight. Basically, I got the garage squared away. Got a little diagnostic computer in there with a little bit of light. You can't really see it. That's the way it goes. I'm going to grab my other camera and show it to you that way, though. So let me grab my other camera, a.k.a. the cell phone. And we'll go from there. Yeah, perfect. All right, so we got all this fun stuff going on. It's walls, whatever. And then we're going to flip it around, and I hope I'm going to know what I'm doing. But I got a little equipment bench there. Just stuff that you would find in a garage, in a police garage. So nothing overly fancy. The blue accent, thank you, Spot. I appreciate it. I did some work off camera today, too, because I was annoyed with it. So I added the gate. But, yeah, it was a fun build today. It was good. I appreciate folks showing up.
I love the off-white, the faded white.
Yeah.
It adds a bit of character to it.
Well, so when I build something, I have to have a story to it, and like, to me, this is a police precinct in a fictional city called Jump City, and Jump City is like the Gotham of the West Coast.
Cool.
So like it's old. It's been, whatever. It's gone through hell, and Jump City finally got their first hero, which is my custom steel that I made that I'm really proud of, that I like to show off all the time.
That figure is better than anything else that has featured steel.
Well, I mean, I watched that horrible Shaq movie.
Oh God!
But I really liked the helmet idea.
Yeah. Well, the comic wasn't too bad, but the movie was terrible.
Oh, that movie was absolutely garbage. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's coming along nicely. Tomorrow night, I'm going to start the roof project, which is the roof over here, and then I'm going to start on tiling the main room right over here. And I do believe my good buddy Brian Saviano is going to be with me tomorrow night, so we're going to hopefully not get distracted with talking the whole time, because that's usually what happens when we're together.
Brian doesn't talk all that much. I don't know what you're talking about. He's not a lippy East Coaster.
No, not at all. No, he's not from Boston. You can't tell at all.
Yeah. He's a character. I love him.
Yep, same here. He's one of my best friends. So, alrighty. So, Lindsay, I am very happy with it. Super happy with it. I can't wait. So that's going to happen. And then tomorrow night at 8:30, once again, I'll be back at it, like I said, with Brian. Ben, I really appreciate you coming by and hanging out, man. We need to do this more often and talk music and talk Lego and talk all the things.
Yeah, I'll have you on my stream sometime soon, too.
That sounds like a wonderful idea. I'll work on something there, too. Alrighty. So for me and Ben, good night, everybody. Have a wonderful time. Bye.
Bye.